Before you plant garlic, the first thing you have to do is decide what type of garlic are you going to grow. And there's several factors that will come into play when you make that decision. So let me talk about a few of the most important things you need to know when determining what type of garlic you actually want to buy. Now, if you look at the different types of garlic, you're gonna always see that there's a hardneck variety and a softneck variety. And which one you choose is extremely important based on where you live and also on what you're looking for in your garlic. Now, let me show you with this one. This is called hardneck garlic. And I don't know if you can tell, but this neck, it's so hard. I mean, I can't even bend it. It would break if I did. This is what hardneck garlic looks like. This one, can you see? Softneck garlic. So this one has a neck that's soft. And you might think to yourself, well, does it really matter? Well, it does if you want your garlic to grow, depending on where you live, so that it thrives and gives you really great bulbs, right? Now, one thing I do want to say, if you're someone who wants to braid your garlic, and I'll show you a picture of what that looks like, that's how I love to store my garlic. The soft neck garlic is going to be your best bet. However, I did actually braid the hardneck garlic too. It's just a little bit harder to do. So that's just sort of a little side note. Now, another difference between softneck and hardneck is flavor. Some people find that the hardneck garlic is a little bit more flavorful, a little bit richer, I guess you could say, in flavor. So something to take note of. Then there's softneck garlic, tends to be a little bigger. It tends to have more bulbs. So this one I think probably has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 bulbs in here. And if this one might have about 6 or 7. So hardneck tends to be a little bit smaller, and you're gonna get more bulbs with a softneck, something to take into account. But softneck garlic, bigger, also stores a bit longer. You can store softneck garlic about up to a year. Hardneck garlic, they say about 6 months, and that always depends on where you store it. So again, lots of little factors to take into account. But the biggest one that you have to take into account, because garlic will not grow in your area if you don't get the right type, is where your climate zone is. If you tend to live in a warm area, you don't get freezes, you don't get frost, you don't get snow, more of a southern climate, you're gonna go with a soft neck garlic. And that's great because they grow wonderful. I used to live in Austin, Texas, and all I could grow was soft neck, and I absolutely loved it. I always try to remember it as soft neck starts with an S, southern areas, southern warmer, southern soft neck, SS, that goes together. That's how I always remember soft neck is for the warmer climates. Now, hard neck is actually when you live in the cooler climates, or maybe a little mix of both, because some of the hard neck varieties need a certain amount of frost time, and they're gonna be more frost hardy so that they can handle the freezes and the snow, things like that. Now, I happen to live in zone 7A. I'm in Pennsylvania. My zone actually just changed. I was 6B, now I'm 7A. Did your zone change? I'd love to know. Put it in the comments below. So I'm 6B, 7A, and I can actually grow both here because I'm sort of in this temperate climate where we do get some frost, but nothing super, super cold. I mean, I think maybe we got barely to 20 degrees last winter. Wasn't that cold, but we did get snow. And so the softneck variety did just fine with a good amount of mulch on top. So it's kind of fun for me because I'm finally able to grow both types of garlic, and both came out really great. So when you're looking for what type of garlic to get, please just take that into account. A lot of places where you buy garlic will tell you based on your zone which one might be more appropriate, but hard neck versus soft neck is going to play a role when it comes to how warm and how cold your climate might be. So really take that one into account, but they're both fantastic. As I said, I've grown them both. Then you're gonna know and see that there's tons of different types of garlic you can buy. Try what you'd like. You can try some of the basic ones that you're gonna get in the market, like the Ishelium Red, which is definitely a favorite of mine, but it's also fun to grow new varieties that you've never tried before. So that part's a little bit of experiment. I always say start with like a couple different types, and we'll talk about how to plant them, and then you'll see if you love it or if you wanna change for the following year. All right, are you ready to plant? Let's go. So I put a good couple inches of organic compost on the bed. It's a compost that I've had out in a path by my house for a while, so it's a little bit dry. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of fresh organic garden soil on top of it. Now before I do that, I'm going to put in a slow release organic fertilizer, just a little bit. I'm going to sprinkle it through. I'm going to show you how I do it. I only put fertilizer in my garden beds once, maybe twice a year. It would be at a time like this where I just pulled out a lot of vegetables, and so this soil is sort of spent and needs a little bit of nutrition, and then usually right before spring, before I put in all of my spring vegetables. That's the only two times that I add any kind of fertilizer or anything to my soil. I really believe in doing everything organically and using a lot of companion planting and things to nourish the soil besides just adding all kinds of fertilizers. So I'm going to add a little bit of this, and then I'm going to add some fancy chicken. This is my favorite, is an organic pelleted chicken manure. And when I've used this in the past, my beds absolutely thrive. So I'm a big fan of this one. I will put the link in the notes below. And then I also like to use a little bit of organic earthworm castings in the hole where I'm going to place the garlic. And I do this when I place any transplant that I'm going to be gardening. I always dig the hole. I put a little bit of earthworm castings, completely natural, completely organic, wonderful for the soil. And then I place the transplant. So that will go in each hole. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to add that garden soil on top. The first thing we have to do after you've amended your bed, the soil is ready to go, is you have to get proper spacing for your garlic. Now you want to plant your garlic cloves every 6 to 8 inches-ish. So they say the bigger space you give them, the more room they have to grow, so the bigger the garlic will be. So I really wouldn't go closer than 6 inches, but anything between 6 and 8 inches is how far apart you want to place your garlic. Now what I like to do is just take a measuring tape. I like to put it out, and that way I can just go ahead and go down the row and sort of make a little indent every 6 inches. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to go every 6 inches for my garlic today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm just going to go all the way down along here and put a nice little indent everywhere that I'm going to place a piece, or a clove I should say, of garlic. Now I would also go about 6 inches from the outside of the bed. If you're working in a container, maybe you're doing it in a big whiskey barrel, something like that, still go in about 4 to 6 inches maybe from the edge and about 6 inches apart. 6 to 8, that's your choice. All right, I'm going to finish the bed right here. All my indents are spaced and ready for my garlic, so the next thing we have to do is we actually have to peel the garlic and take out each individual clove, because that is what you are going to be planting. Most important thing is you're really careful to not take off the entire wrapper around each individual clove, and then I'm going to show you, make sure you put the right side up in the soil. So let's go ahead and get these cloves out. See how it's still in the wrapper? Keep as much of the wrapper on that you can. Make sure that the garlic is not damaged in any way. Always wanting to use the biggest pieces you can. If there's a little tiny one, or it has you know, like a deep indent scratch into it, I wouldn't use it because it's probably going to rot. So be really cautious as you get your garlic cloves ready. Gonna get the rest of mine ready, and we'll lay them in the soil. So once you've spaced out all your garlic, I like to go ahead and place it all sticking up with that pointy side up so that I make sure everything's placed where it needs to be. And then before I actually plant it, I like to put just a little bit of earthworm castings in each hole. So I simply grab a little earthworm castings, literally just a little handful, and I'll put a little in the hole, and then I'll sort of dig it down. And then let's talk about placement of the garlic. You want the pointy side up and the flat side down when you plant that in the hole. So you put your earth castings in, you always remember pointy side points up, and you want to put it about 2 inches deep. Now from my knuckle to my fingernail, that's 2 inches. So all I do is I sort of dig my finger down to that knuckle, and then I'll take this and I'll push it down so that this point here is now about 2 inches from the top of the soil line, which is perfectly right there. Earthworm castings are in, and then you can cover that one up. So we can do it again over here. I'm gonna take my earthworm castings, just kind of throw them in the hole there, mix them down using that finger method, knuckle down, pointy side up, flat side down, and really push it down so that the top of that point is about 2 inches down from the soil line. Make sure it's deep enough. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the bed. All right, the last 2 steps that you have to do when you do your garlic. The first is you need to set your labels. So if you did use more than one kind of garlic, not only should you say if there's Softneck or Hardneck, but if there is a specific type of garlic that you put on one side or another, it's so important that you make sure you label it. Now I went ahead and did my Hardneck garlic on this half of the bed and Softneck on the other. For me, I only use 2 types, and they're actually easy to distinguish which one is which, so I don't really need my labels, but it's always a good idea to have them listed. Not to mention, if you do plant Hardneck garlic, you're gonna get something called a scape once it starts growing several weeks before you're actually gonna harvest it, and that you will not get in a Softneck garlic. And I'll talk about that more as we get closer to harvest time. The very final step of your garlic planting is to put some mulch on top of the bed. Now, definitely dependent on where you live, and if you live in a cold area, they recommend anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of mulch. Some people do it right after they plant it, like I do. Some people wait for after the first frost. Simply do what works for you, but I'm going to put at least 3 inches on this bed right now. And now, let's water it in. You want to give it a good soaking and about 1 inch of water a week. But typically I'll pull all of my irrigation lines out in the winter, and the rain does the trick. I don't come out and water it any special amount in the winter because we do get a good amount of rain all winter long. But you want to give this a good soak to get it started. And then you're going to leave it alone pretty much until spring.